Hey, how you doing? As you know, everything in this channel is dedicated to getting you into the flow state. What I want to share with you today is going to be very useful to helping you remove the barriers that's stopping you getting into the flow state. It's related to stress. I know it might sound a wee bit boring, but you need to hear this because to get yourself tuned into the flow state, you need to be in a progressive balance between your sympathetic nervous system and your parasympathetic nervous system. You're looking for like a coherence to the activity that you're pursuing. Now the word coherence is good because there is a sort of breathing coherence. There is a resting coherence, there is a heart rate coherence. The way of tuning into that is understanding heart rate variability, which I have other videos about. But today I want to speak specifically about breathing. Now, this bit of information here, you might think, what's this? Just numbers. 1929, 4.9, what does this mean? This is the average breathing rate per minute. A couple of digits, jumping to 7.8 in the 80s. In the 90s, 12, 2000s, 2022, 18 to 24. What does this mean? The higher your breathing rate per minute, the more likely you are walking about in a stress state, meaning you're in this fight or flight state, meaning you're in the defensive state, meaning your whole system is in a defensive state. Now, that's just stress related. Now there's a whole heap of health issues that cascade under this imbalance, but I don't want to speak about that. I'm purely focusing on flow because that's what I want to get you into, is how do I get you into the flow state. If you realize, if you take stock and track your 1 minute breath count and you find that you're up here, then you have to shift yourself down to find a breathing rate round about, they actually say it's 5, but I would say it's between 5 and 7. Between 5 and 7 breaths per minute. That's an indication that you are in a coherence. That's an indication that you're in a progressive balance between your sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system at the task that you're doing. Assuming you're doing, well, probably sitting down or standing up, not doing much movements when you're doing your 1 minute breath count. So, if we're going to be targeting de-stressing our system so we can help ourselves get into flow on a more consistent basis, we need to really implement and utilize breathing correctly. How do we breathe correctly? Well, I've spoken about in depth in other videos, but what I want to do is try and give you a streamlined version. 3 things that you can take away just now. Number 1 is you want to be using your diaphragm for breathing. Now, a way for you to train your diaphragm is to put a band, something like this, around your waist at the lower ribs. So when you breathe in, you'll feel a bit of pressure resistance against that. That's an indication that you are implementing your diaphragm. Another way to get a sense of the location of your diaphragm is a simple exercise where you breathe in, you breathe out, you'll pinch and hold your nose, okay, and you'll try and breathe again. When you do this, you'll feel where your diaphragm is. So just breathe in, breathe out, and then try and breathe again, and you'll feel the movement in your diaphragm there. Okay, so train your diaphragm, but before you do that, you also got to feel where it is. So if you feel that your diaphragm is ribcage and it flaps down the way, okay, so using that band around there will help give you a sense of where it is. And then practicing the breath hold to get that little feeling of where it is will be very useful. When you consciously work diaphragmatic breathing with that bit of resistance in there, you're training that diaphragmatic muscle, therefore you're training your breath. The other thing is nasal breathing. You only want to be breathing in and out through your nose. Your nose has everything related to breathing, your mouth doesn't. So if you're breathing in and out through your mouth, shut it. If you're breathing in through your nose and out your mouth, shut it a little bit. and just breathe only in and out through your nose. When you do this, you also reap the benefits of nasal nitric oxide, which is a vasodilator, which is perfect for getting you relaxed and into a flow, which I'll come to in a moment. The other thing is to breathe less. Over breathing is a massive obstacle that a lot of people face. When people over breathe, they get rid of too much CO2. We need CO2 to properly diffuse or utilize all the oxygen in your system. So we need to breathe less. That also coincides beautifully with this graph here, right? Breathing too much has a massive effect on our nervous system, but also has an effect on the way that we utilize oxygen in our system, or we don't. So breathing less is really important. Nasal breathing, super. And also using your diaphragm to do that. All those three things, if you just take them on board and practice them on a consistent basis, you are rocking and rolling. Now when you do this, you're more likely to get yourself into a heart rate coherence, a heart rate variability, and therefore you're more likely to have awareness of where you are in this skill challenge ratio that I speak about a lot related to flow. Sympathetic nervous system, parasympathetic nervous system. When you breathe in, sympathetic. When you breathe out, parasympathetic. It's kind of your control mechanisms. So when you purposely train these three and become like an artist of these three, you're more likely to be able to find yourself primed for an activity and flow. Now one more thing I want to touch on. There's 4 key phases of going, or stages you go through getting into a flow state. You go through a struggle phase, you go through the release, then you go through the flow state itself, and then later on you go into a recovery stage here. But this struggle phase, if you're here to get yourself into flow on a consistent basis, and you are trying to trigger yourself into that, but yet your breathing rate is up here, so you're in a stressed state, you will constantly be finding yourself in a loop of struggle, making a mountain out of a molehill. What you need to be able to do to overcome that struggle phase is reattune your breathing. Get your breathing in control. When you get your breathing in control related to the task at hand, you're going to get yourself triggered into the release stage. When you're in that release stage, that's where you're releasing that nasal nitric oxide into your system. Vasodilator flushes out that buildup of tension, frustration, anxiety, gets rid of that, allows you to flush all that out. Pating patang, there you are in flow. As long as you've got a specific task you're working on. Okay? So, in short, breathe less, okay? This is way too high. This is causing massive effects on your health and performance. You want to get your breathing rate down to about 5 to 7 breaths per minute. You only want to be breathing with your diaphragm through your nose and breathing less, hence the number here. When you do this, you'll find yourself being more attuned to the sweet spot of flow, and you will be in a more of a heart rate variability or a heart rate coherence, okay? And when you do this, you're gonna get into this guy, yeehaw, as often as you can. Well, I hope you found this useful. If you did, give me a thumbs up. If you didn't, just move along to another video. Look at mine, would be better, but if you got this far, you must have liked it. Thanks for listening. I'll see you guys and girls in another video. Ciao.